Does everybody know what Skillshare is? David Briggs came and spoke, who's the Lord Lieutenant of Cheshire, came and spoke to the group a few months ago about using your skills to go into charities and actually assist them in maybe putting together a marketing strategy or a finance strategy or helping them with their business plan for the year. So very specific skills that they're lacking or need support in. What I wanted to do today was just sort of talk to you about the business benefits, and we've already talked about some of those before, but the main ones that are identified, and Business in the Community is a great resource for information on CSR. The main ones: staff turnover and retention, and motivation and loyalty. How you're seen by your supply chain, and also your customer preference. Now, BITC did this research. 70% of employees are more committed to their employer. One of the other pieces of research they did was actually, even if you do nothing, if you identify the Hospice of the Good Shepherd as your charity of the year or your charitable partner, even if you don't do anything, the staff still feel better about the organisation because you're not just out there going for profit. You've identified that actually there is a broader community, which is important to your staff as well. And retention, and I know probably at the moment staff retention isn't probably a major problem for a lot of people. As soon as things start to go up, if people aren't happy where they are, they'll leave in droves. Compass Group, who was one of the companies that I'd worked with when I was with the Railway Children, they fast food. So the part of the business I worked with was all the food outlets on all the railway stations. So whether you're Burger King or Cafe Ritazza, they're all owned by SSP at the railway stations. And so obviously high turnover business, fairly low skilled staff, and that's a huge cost to the organisation when your staff turnover is high. And we got them to look at their staff turnover after they'd been working with the Railway Children for a couple of years, and it had gone down by 2.7%. Now this is 10 years ago, so it's not because of the current recession. And they hadn't realised just what an impact, again, that 70% we said of people feeling happier about the organisation was purely because people felt they were doing some good, and they were doing some good in this country, and they were doing some good overseas as well. And Yorkshire Water, and again, I got this from BITC, but they actually used the team building type stuff for their staff, but they'd put up quite a lot of structure around the employee volunteering. They saved themselves £60,000 on staff training by having staff going out and volunteering in a very structured manner, so it was actually hitting some of their key learning objectives. This is the company I was just telling you about, a select service partner. I set up the relationship with them 10 years ago. And they'd been to an event run by the Railway Children. The Railway Children work with runaway and abandoned children in the UK and overseas. And for SSP, they were looking for a charity partner. There was a national drive for all of the Compass Group to actually find a charity partner. And for them, that made obvious sense. Strategically, it was an organisation that worked on the railways. They were based on the railways, worked in the UK, and worked overseas. Excuse me. A lot of their staff were from overseas. So I don't know if you ever go to Burger King at Euston Station, but most of the staff there are from India or Pakistan. So a lot of the money that we spent at the Railway Children went back to India. So again, there was that kind of connection for some of the staff that it was money was going back home. Initially, they said they wanted to raise £20,000 for the Railway Children, and they planned to do that through the usual fundraising ways. As their account manager, I wanted to kind of use lots of different ways of raising money, and that took us 2 or 3 years to get to that point. But we started off with collecting tins on all stations. Now, there's 400 and odd outlets, so actually that was quite a bit of spare change we were getting there. And by the 3rd year, we were getting £8,000 a month from collecting tins. It's quite surprising how much money you can get from those. But if you're buying a coffee and you've got 5p left over, it's quite easy to put that in there. But we also decided we wanted to try and integrate the organisation more into the charity. And this was purely from the charity point of view. We were trying to get our fingers in there so that they couldn't escape very easily. But they got massive benefits from it as an organisation. They went out to India to actually see one of our projects after the first year, and for them as an organisation that made such a difference to their commitment to the cause, and they agreed to then raise money for a school as well, build a school, so another £15,000, quite cheap to build mud brick schools. One of their directors came onto our trustee board, so then she was getting contacts because we had some very senior railway people on that trustee board. But she was bringing something new into our organisation, but she was also taking it back into her own organisation. And it's like when you recruit externally and bring somebody new in, you're getting the benefit of that experience. So she was getting that as well. But we were also working with the staff, so the staff were getting this huge, it's quite boring serving coffee all day. So they were getting this extra buzz from, we had one day which we called Mad Day, which is a bit like Sport Relief Day, where everybody did silly things for the railway children. But as one of those, they actually used the staff a back to the floor day, and they all bid for the directors to go and work for them. And the directors spent the whole day running around London because they got an hour in each place. Staff's like, fantastic, we can get one of the directors on the spot, we can choose what they do. Washing up was a favourite, but we've got their ear as well. And if you've ever watched any of those back to the floor things where they learned so much from it. And they actually redesigned the bags that they give baguettes out in at Upper Crust because their marketing director went in there and she just couldn't open the things. And the staff said, we've been saying that for months that we can't open these bags. That was delaying them actually serving the baguettes. They changed their supplier as a result of that. So they got a huge amount out of that. As I said, they reduced their staff turnover by 2.7%. They also did a bit of cause-related marketing around certain things would have an offer on them that a certain amount of money would come to the charity, again, to promote specific things that, the way they used that was specific lines that weren't moving particularly well. So maybe a new cherry Bakewell muffin that people weren't buying. So they promote it as helping the charity, and then that would lift sales up for them. But from the board perspective, they used it for this Compass in the Community. Now they put it in for this Compass in the Community award, and they actually won the UK one. And then they went on to the international one, and they were up against 93 different countries, and they won the international one as well. So their managing director, who was director of quite a small company in the UK within Compass Group, actually raised his profile from being just one MD of a number of companies, so that internationally he was now known by the international board. Now I don't know whether he went into that with that in mind. It certainly wasn't never shared with us at Railway Children if that's what he wanted to do, but it worked for him as a way of raising his profile. That relationship has now gone on for 10 years, and they've just raised £1 million for the Railway Children. So it's a huge amount of money they've raised, but also for the organisation. But that's what I mean about that long-term commitment. You can actually, as an organisation, as a company, get so much more out of it because you start to get trusting each other and sharing strategy and how you can help each other with objectives. I think sometimes if you're working with certain companies who are really big into CSR, and certainly often if you're going into public sector to do some tendering, they ask you what your CSR policy is. So this can help you to become a preferred supplier, but it also can help you to manage out waste. So going back to environmental impact, it can help with that. And client relationships, whether your clients are the general public, or specific companies that you're working with, again, if they have a CSR policy and they see that you have one as well, you're often helping them to meet their commitment to CSR. But what I have seen some companies do very effectively is if they have specific customers that they want to get closer to, they'll maybe suggest that you do a joint activity. So, for example, I've seen, in fact, it was Chess Group, what they did was they did a Costa Rica challenge, so one of these challenges where you're physically challenging yourself to the extremes, and they asked 2 of their clients to go with them. One was O2 and Ernst & Young was another one, and so very much, sorry gentlemen, very much alpha male, wanting to outdo each other, and they said, yeah, definitely, and we're going to win as well. So they went into this as to be the winning team. But that brought those 4 people much closer together. And from the point of view of the MD of the organisation, he now has just an amazing relationship with those 2 people, very senior people at O2 and Ernst & Young, that has really cemented that relationship.